Chris, what's up?
What's up, homie?
Chris, that's a good-looking shirt, bro.
It is a good-looking shirt.
That's interesting that you feel like that you should recover loud so that others don't suffer in silence. That's a good saying.
Maybe it's an unashamed kind of saying.
Well, I would like one of those shirts, but I feel like I would only want one if it helps a good cause.
Well, I know a place that you can go and get one.
Where?
Unashamed.unafraid.com.
But Chris, this t-shirt seems slightly overpriced for just a regular t-shirt. Why is it so expensive?
So it can go towards scholarships. Woohoo!
So if you don't know, we're a nonprofit and those scholarships happen. So we invite you to go to Unashamed Unafraid. You can buy some merch, donate, become an outsider, hang out with us on social media, help us with this movement of helping people really find change and hope, like the Hulk of Hope. Here, my friend Chris. Also feeling righteous and ratchet, so shout out to Lecrae, all the folks at Reach Records, because I'm also wearing that shirt, which Lehigh back here told me. Lehigh is dating James's daughter, so we're giving him a shout out, hoping some of this downloads on him. So we got our folks back here, and we got Jason back here, who doesn't get enough love. So,
we love you, Jason.
Jason, love you. And I'll tell you the other person who doesn't get enough love is our boy Jeremy back here. Jeremy does all our scheduling, and something I want to say about Jeremy. Jeremy and I actually are super good friends. People know this. Jeremy is like on time, does the things that's super organized. What you don't know is I change our recording schedule all the time.
And he loves it.
Because I'm just super unorganized. And in truth, Jeremy's super kind about it. So Jeremy, thank you for loving me as I really am in our brotherhood. That's a big deal. And we're hanging out with a new brother here to share us our story. So Gavin, what's up, man?
Oh, we're just so excited to be here.
So tell us how you got here.
So I got here from a recommendation on the podcast. That's how I first started listening. And then I just emailed Jeremy and said, hey, I want to be on the podcast and share my story. So here we are.
I sent out the bat call, as I do on many of our episodes, and you actually answered.
I did answer.
And when we were talking before the show, Gavin, I'm like, who is it that actually referred you to the show? And he's like, I think it was a family member. I can't really quite remember. So he didn't remember who actually referred him to the show. So I say that because this is interesting, because often I think when people listen, they think it's like me and, James and, Chris, and it's just like our 5 buddies that go to Warrior Heart, and we just kind of like cycle stories that. But like, we've never met.
Yeah, never.
And so I just think that even just the starting of this experience is cool because like, this is how recovery can really happen.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So tell us the story, man. Start from the beginning.
From the beginning, I was first introduced to masturbation when I was probably 12, 13 years old. Just some friends after school one day were talking and I kind of joined their conversation, and I didn't know anything about that at all. My parents never really talked about it. I just knew that it was bad. That was pretty much it. And so I remember going home, I don't know if it was that day or a couple of days later, and I masturbated for the first time. And it was a super weird sensation. I felt kind of physically sick after doing it. And obviously I went back and told my friends that I had done it, and then I was introduced to pornography just a little while after that. And I first started with pictures on the computer of...
Because you're how old?
I'm 26 right now.
Okay, so I brag at 35 that I remember when there was no internet, right? Like we get the AOL dial-up cards in the mail. Y'all know, James is way too old. He's like way too old to know this. But some of these sways with me, Jason, like we had the dial-up internet, and so you're even kind of a decade younger than me.
Oh yeah.
And so internet's full-blown, the access, all the stuff is there.
Yeah, it's still probably not as fast as it was, but it was there. And I remember going and looking at pictures of, girls in bikinis and things like that, and that's how it started. And then after that, I kind of just got hooked. And I don't want to say spiraled out of control, but it essentially did for a little bit, to where I was just in it.
So tell me about, so you've already got the narrative around masturbation's wrong. We're not talking about it.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that porn is a safe subject.
Definitely not.
And so you just held on to this?
Yeah, I didn't tell anybody. And
did you ever get caught by mom or dad?
Yeah, I think I got caught I don't know if caught's the right word, or they monitored my phone and internet access, and so they saw that something was popping up, and obviously I got busted a little while after that, because at that point it was me and my older brother, and then my younger brother, I think he was probably still a little too young to know about that. Not know about it, but at least take action with it.
Sure.
And
So did you blame it on older brother? It was his fault.
it was him. No, that didn't really work, because he was in it as well, you know, for a little bit. And so I got involved with my bishop and going my ecclesiastical leader, and through that repentance.
That's like pastor in the LDS church. So
got kind of into that repentance process at an earlier age. But
what was that experience like for you?
it was really weird, because I didn't know what I had done really. I just knew that it was bad, and people were telling me that it was bad and that I shouldn't have done
Now
it.
you need to go talk to the
Exactly,
bishop.
and I was like, well, I don't know like why. Like, I just know that it's bad, and so it was kind of not a weird experience, but it felt a little foreign to me, because I was a good kid, you know. I got decent grades and was active in church and everything like that, and so it was kind of a foreign concept to me. And then that started, and that kept happening for quite a few years until after my sophomore year of high school. And that's when I had my first sexual experience with another person. And that one I would have gotten away with it as well. But again, my parents were monitoring my phone, and one of my friends texted me about it. And that's how I kind of got found out for that. And that whole repentance process.
You threw me under the bus,
Yeah,
man.
no, really. I think I went up to him in school and said, what the hell, dude? Like, why did you do that? And so, so I kind of got caught on that end as well. And that started a whole different side of the repentance process.
So tell me the narrative going on. So you're like, I don't like the awkwardness of being busted, but like, I'm glad mom and dad are present enough that this accountability is here. Or is it like, screw you, mom and dad, get out of my life? Like, so what's the relationship with and was it just mom who was really showing up and dad's checked out, or vice versa? Or
No,
were they
so
united front?
Yeah, they were both involved in it. Obviously, being the second oldest, they wanted me to. I've got 4 younger brothers.
Okay.
And so they wanted, me and my older brother to set a good example, and this and that, and but yeah, it was kind of, they were involved and they were in it, and my mom always says a lot more than my dad does. My dad's a pretty quiet person. But yeah, they were both involved in getting me back on track to, reaching my goals and my potential. And so
not in a shameful way at all.
I think in the beginning it was, that was the first time I ever heard them say they were disappointed in me, and that kind of stung like a knife in my heart, but rightfully so. I had gone against what I knew was wrong, and but it was just so, I don't want to say fitting, because I had been in pornography and masturbation for a few years now, and it got to the point where it was a daily, multiple time a day interaction between me and pornography and masturbation, and so kind of reaching that next step, I figured I was going to get caught sooner or later. I just didn't think it would be the first time that I had that interaction with somebody. And so that repentance process was with the bishop again. It was, kind of taken from a different angle, and they threw me into some 12-step groups and tried to do everything they could to help me and to kind of help me along that recovery path.
So you were how old when you started going to recovery?
So I was probably 16-ish, around that age, 16, 17, when I was first introduced to the groups. And I'm going to say I'm not a huge fan of the 12-step groups. It wasn't what I needed at that time, I think.
So was it the church's one? The LDS church's one? Or
I think it was. I mean, it was at the seminary building of the high school I went to, so I
was facilitating that. So then maybe that, I was like, you look familiar to me.
It might have been. I mean,
so I'm like, you look way familiar to me.
Well, it was 10 years ago,
bro. Anonymity.
Oh yeah, we can't let anybody know that there's an addiction there.
I mean,
bro.
It was 10 years ago, so maybe, but.
So I guess my question is, so, like, as you're talking about, so your experience, because so for me, a long time for me, it was a series of random events that were not connected. right? So I was like, oh, it's just me and girls, and boys are boys, or this, you know, like I wasn't like putting it all together in the big picture, being like, I think this is like a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about getting busted, right, having your first sexual experience, and then for you, did you feel like, man, this is all connected, this is a thing? Or do you feel like, I'm in this system with the parents and the church, and I need to check the boxes? Like, where was your heart at that point in time, or how did you see it?
Yeah, so I definitely saw it kind of the way that you saw it, that it was just a bunch of random things that I was doing. I didn't think it was anything connected at all or anything like that. You know, I was kind of playing be the good boy in church on Sundays and on Wednesday nights at Mutual, and other than that, I would just kind of do what I wanted, and obviously kind of living that double life, which carried out for a very long time after my mission and everything like that. But yeah, I didn't feel like they were connected at all. I just felt like it was just things that I was doing that I was either getting in trouble for or something like that. But I didn't feel like it was ever connected at all.
So when you look at those high school years, who was God to you?
God was definitely somebody that I had to prove I was worthy of loving. I had to prove to him that I was worth his time and his love, and that was by kind of being that good boy on Sundays and, you know, to the people in my ward and things like that. That's kind of the best description of who God was to me at that time.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
So you're in recovery with that. You go on your mission, where everything's good to go. You stopped before your mission, everything's good to go, and then you came back home and then jumped back in it, or was it continuous?
Yeah, no. So I stopped before my mission. There was something that I hadn't taken care of before I went. So in an interview, I actually got on the phone with my stake president, me and my mission president did, and called him and said, hey, I didn't work through this. This is what happened. And they said, well, we'll give you a call in a couple days and see what we decide. And that was probably like the most stressful 3 days of my life on my mission. But I think I got a call at 11 o'clock at night from the mission president saying, hey, we think you're a great addition to this mission and we want you to stay. And I felt so relieved after that phone call.
Yeah.
Just I think the shame and guilt that I felt for those first couple of months was really kind of tearing me apart. And after that, I had a great mission.
Yeah.
And loved
Where'd you
everything
go,
about
just
it.
out of curiosity?
I went to the Dominican Republic.
Okay, so DR, right on.
Yeah.
So did you, was there a lot of struggles with pornography, masturbation on your mission?
No, there was actually none. It was...
What do you think the difference was?
I think being immersed in something...
Because, don't tell me you can't get porn on your mission.
No, for the first little bit...
Masturbation goes with you everywhere you go.
It goes with me everywhere, but... I mean, the only place I would have been able to get pornography was at, the internet centers where we wrote our weekly emails, but it's also, they weren't the best at, privacy, so it was just kind of open and would have been really awkward. But, I did have an iPhone for the last 6 months of my mission, just the position that I was in, and yeah, I mean, it was definitely available, I think. I don't know the blocks that the church had on
you
their
could have
phones.
found a way,
Yeah, I probably could have found a way, but I didn't, and it was all great on my mission.
And so you attribute that to just being immersed in having the purpose of doing the work, having somewhere to be?
Yeah, I think that's what I kind of give credit to, is just being there, having something to do all of the time, and probably being so tired that I didn't really have time to do anything else.
Yeah. So you get home from the mission, and what happens?
I get home, and things are pretty good for about 6 months. I had a couple little girlfriends when I came home and things like that. And then after that 6-month mark is when the pornography and masturbation started kind of creeping back in a little bit. I kind of, I don't want to say lost sight of that missionary, but I definitely didn't attribute the time to God that I should have. And I think
You mean when you get home, you're not spending 24/7, devoting everything you got to God?
Definitely not.
Well, and just transitioning to some type of spiritual practice. And
yeah, exactly. And so, 6 months after my mission is kind of all came creeping back, and that's when I started on the dating apps and kind of that whole side of it. about 8 months after I came home is when I lost my virginity and had my, that next sexual experience. And that was kind of a big thing for me at that time.
Yeah.
So shame comes in, was it already there before, or just when you finally had sex, shame kicked in, or was it still non-existent?
No, I mean, it definitely was. There was after that experience, I remember driving home and feeling like the lady who was thrown to Jesus in adultery. And when he says, go and sin no more. And I was like, holy cow, that's really cool. Never going to do that again. And then, it happened again.
That's weird because Chris and I never had that experience.
No.
Ever quit right after you egged out, Chris?
Yeah, like
With
every
full
holiday.
commitment that this is never going to happen again.
Every holiday, especially New Year, I'm never going to do this again.
Oh, yeah.
One day it came true, though.
About 3 or 4 times a week, but yeah.
Yeah.
So you're thrown back into that experience, and so what happens?
Yeah, and I think it just kind of kept going. I knew that what I had done was bad, obviously. Going through the repentance process before my mission and, the things that I taught on my mission and things like that. But I didn't tell anybody. I said, okay, that was bad. I went home and said, I'm sorry. Never going to do it again. Amen.
Right.
And kept going about my life. And but it never got better,
Sure.
It just kept going, and I eventually had more partners and things like that. And it didn't really stop. So
when did things change?
I want to say recently. They never really stopped. Even when I met my wife, I had a couple of little affairs while we were dating. Had a big one right after we got married. And I want to say that, it sucked to do those things and to hurt somebody like that.
Yeah.
But
so tell us about like your premise of getting married. Like marriage is going to fix it, or I'm just in this dual life, so I kind of got to just keep playing the game so no one notices, or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the marriage will fix it and was a very big part of it.
Which is one we laugh about
Yes.
on the show often, knowing that marriage does not fix it. So anyone listening, marriage doesn't fix it.
Yeah.
Marriage is not going to change your sexually compulsive behavior.
Listening to you guys and other podcasts, it seems to be a pretty common theme among a lot of people.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
And it was for me as well. I thought, well, I'll be married. This won't happen again. Like everything will be just great.
The motivation, the accountability, right.
Yeah, and it definitely wasn't.
I'm having sex in the way I should be having sex. All the narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not bad anymore. So I don't have to feel shame or guilt about it anymore.
Right. And so what was she found out about it? Because I'm assuming you didn't tell her about all this stuff.
No, so I kept it all pretty much inside.
Yeah.
No pornography? Didn't let her know about that? Pornography, masturbation?
Those things we talked about here and there, but it wasn't where it should have been. It wasn't the level of communication that we should have had about it.
Meaning I'm disclosing just enough to say we kind of had the conversation, but I'm not actually going to tell you all the stuff.
Yeah, or like, oh, today I struggled, but I didn't do anything, and but I want you to know that I'm struggling with it, and just so that she wouldn't raise any questions about if I had been watching it or anything like that.
And that may have been true that day.
Yeah.
You may have had a good day, and you're like, hey, I felt some empowerment here, so now I'm going to tell her because go me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The spotlight gaslight combo, right? The spotlight of just showing you this piece to kind of add into the fuel of
Yeah. And so
you get married. You talked about having a big affair after you got married.
Yeah.
It happened shortly after you got married.
Very shortly, like within a couple of months.
And so was that like, right? Because we're talking about it's like these are a random of series events that are happening. So when that one happens, what's going through your mind?
At that point,
because you're married now.
Yes. At that point, I knew that there was something that I needed to take care of and something that I shouldn't obviously be in a marriage. But again, I kept it hidden, you know. And I remember right before Christmas, this was like 2 days before we were supposed to go to Arizona for Christmas. And I get a text at work, and it's a picture of some messages on my laptop that I hadn't taken off. And she's like, "What is this?" And so, you know, I went home and we talked about it, and that's when some more things came out, but not everything. And then she said, give me one thing that I don't know about to make me trust you. And I said I had an affair. And that's how that kind of came out. So like, yeah, I told her, but she also caught me with everything else before. And so that's how that kind of came to the surface.
So her reaction to that?
Anger, frustration. She got very, very upset, understandably, you know.
Sure. And you've been married how long when you have this discovery experience?
We'd been married for 2 months.
Okay. So where'd you go from there? She's like, we're going to work this out. We're going to make this happen.
Yeah, so she went home
F
for
you,
Christmas.
I'm out of here. Like,
she went home for Christmas, and I went to my parents' house for Christmas. And we spent our first married Christmas apart.
Did everybody know then? They're like, wait, you're married, but you're separated? Like, what's the deal?
No, so it was kind of thrown under the bus a little bit. You know, like I remember my uncle asking me, and I said, oh, well, we couldn't decide where we wanted to go for Christmas, so she went to her parents and I came here. And he's like, what? He's like, that's awful. And I was like, yeah, I know, like, not as awful as what actually happened. But,
yeah, right, yeah. Wait till you hear the real story, Uncle Joe.
But yeah, so, you know, people asked, and I just said, oh, we're spending Christmas apart. And I think people kind of knew or figured something out at least.
Was off, yeah.
Yeah.
This is not the norm. Yeah.
And then she came back, and we talked about things and decided to work it out, which took a lot of courage on her end.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
Which I credit a ton of that to her. But yeah, so we decided to work things out, and we did for a little bit. We moved to California just to kind of start fresh and get away. Yeah. And then I ended up having an emotional affair in California. Just messaging somebody through an app that I didn't know what the app really was, and then when I found out, it was too late, and I was kind of already in it. And that one I went to her and said, well, I first called my dad and I said, I'm going to have a conversation with Ashley, and it will probably end our marriage. And that was probably the hardest conversation I've ever had before, was with my dad, because I knew the consequences of my actions, and I knew what they were going to be this time.
And so when you're at that intersection, because you said before, like with the affair, you had the knowing of like, oh no, this is not a random thing that just happened. This is, I'm married now. So you felt like we've gotten away, we've changed, like, so you're like, this is the nail in the coffin. Because you're talking to dad and you're like, I think this is going to end the marriage.
Yeah, and I mean, the only reason I had that conversation with my dad is because we brought up having me take like a lie detector test before we started having kids and kind of progressing into that stage of our lives. And I remember we were driving back from Arizona when we had that conversation, and my heart sunk because I knew I wouldn't be able to pass the test if we took one. And so that's when I called my dad and said, this is going to be it. And so I went to her and said, this happened. This is what it was, you know, X, Y, Z. And
being totally honest, or still?
Yeah, no, that one I was totally honest. I said, this is what happened, and here it is. And so we kind of took a couple days, and that one it was hard because we couldn't really like separate our time because we were both stayed away from home. Like I couldn't just drive 30 minutes to my parents' house and stay for the weekend while she thought about it. And
because you're out of state by yourselves.
Yeah, so it was kind of like we stayed in the house together, and it was kind of an awkward couple of days while we were kind of deciding what to do. And we talked about separation, and I said, I don't know if I want to, because I would have to leave my job that I just got here. I would have to pack everything up. I'd have to go back home. How long are we going to separate for? It was, I almost kind of gave up in a way. I didn't fight to try again. I just kind of threw in the white towel and said, here it is. Like if you were thinking about separating, let's just end it and let's just get a divorce. And so I think that was hard for her to hear as well, that I didn't want to to try and separate and work things out. I would just rather end it. And I don't know what the conversation was like, but we ended up, and I was kind of packing up to go home. And, you know, at that point we had like blockers on my phone and things like that. And so I got the passwords for all of that. And we would have ended on somewhat decent terms, you know, but I downloaded an app and started talking to somebody, and she saw the message on my laptop. And I got a call from my mom while I was at work, and she said, Ashley wants you out of the house tonight. Because I was planning on leaving like 2 days later. And so I was like, well, let's just finish out the week. And my mom said she wants you gone. And then she said, and I want you home by tomorrow. And so I drove all through the night and got to St. George at like 2 o'clock and slept at my grandparents' condo, and I was home by...
So did you call into work?
No, I left a note on my desk that said...
I quit.
Yeah, like, and they knew that I was quitting. They knew that I was getting a divorce.
2 days away.
But I just said you know.
So so I'll make sure I have the story clear. So she's like, when you're like, if we're going to get separated, we might as well get divorced. And she's like, then we're getting divorced.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much the conversation.
Why didn't you fight?
I
the marriage?
I didn't feel like I had a leg to stand on. I felt like I had hurt her so much.
Because you've been married how long?
We'd been married for like 1.5 years at that point.
Okay.
But I didn't feel like I had a leg to stand on in the marriage. I didn't feel like I had the right to say, I want to work this out again. After hurting you twice, you know, more than twice, and having you drug through the mud in this relationship, I want to try again. And it's like, I didn't feel like I had the right to say that thing.
So was it just easier to just be like, you know what? Instead of like going and doing all this work, it's just easier for me to just walk away and be done.
Yeah, I felt like it was a little easier, you know, to say I need, like, and at that point I knew that there was something I needed to work on. And obviously I'd gone to therapy during that year and had made some really good progress. But when we moved to California...
Well, my curiosity is like, did you at that point in time have the belief like, I don't know that I can change this behavior? So I don't want to make a promise that, like, I'm not betting on myself. So I really don't want to tell her to her face to bet on.
Yeah, there were.
Or was it more like, was it that, or was it more like, man, I'd have a lot of relief if
I just wasn't married.
Yeah, I think
just wasn't married.
I think it was a little bit of both. You know, there were times where I said I'm never gonna figure this out. And it was also like, I don't want her to be a part of this because she deserves so much more than this. And I don't want to keep doing this to her because I don't know if I can do it, you know?
Right. Well, and I think that's, the reason I think Chris and I are like, whoa, slow the train or whatever is like, I think everyone's had, I think both of those experiences. I know I've had the experiences that I'm like, man, if Kayla would just be like, I'm out, like a sense of relief, like, oh my gosh, I don't have to be responsible for all the harm I'm gonna, that is happening and whatever, like a relief, like, yep, I'm the bad guy, seal that narrative, I'm out of here. And I think also having been at the intersection, I remember sitting out there after I had my last big disclosure, and we were sitting out in the car, and I was like, the shame really got to me that I'm like, and I said to Kayla, I said, I don't think I'm a good person who does bad things. I think I might just be a bad person who keeps trying to convince myself I'm good.
Yeah.
And she's
Which
like,
is the very definition
of shame, right? Oh no, I was just overwhelmed in my shame. And I remember she said to me, she was like, well, and she'll tell you if she was sitting here, she'd be like, I had never experienced him like that. Because I've always been the one that's like, there's hope and we're doing the thing. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, I think we just need to get divorced. Of having that feeling that I'm just like, Kayla, this isn't going to go better for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's going to be another round, there's going to be more pain, or like, I don't just really believe that I don't feel like I can change.
So shame is controlling that for you. So was
sure.
shame controlling that for you as well?
Oh, yeah. Gavin? Shame was a huge part of that thought process for me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that. I felt I'm not going to make anything better, so why do you want to be here? Like, it would be so much better if you left and I could do my thing and you could do your thing and we could just call it even like that.
Right. And so was your thought just like, This is who I am.
Yeah, there were definitely a part of me that said, this is it. Like, this is going to be me for the next 70 years.
So you're 26 now. So you're how old when did you get divorced?
6 months ago.
So what's the process been in the last 6 months?
So that's when it was finalized, right? So when did you come back from California?
So I came home in December.
Okay.
And then we filed for divorce in January. The divorce was actually finalized March 29th. I know that because I went and picked up the papers today.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
That's what happened.
Yeah, before I just got an email that said, you are divorced, thanks. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, thanks.
Yeah. So I mean, being here in this, like 6 months just ain't that long, brother, right? And I love and so someone who's in the narrative of like, this is just who I am, I don't think sends an email to come on the Unashamed Unafraid podcast.
Yeah.
So something happened between, you know what, this is a train wreck.
Oh, yeah.
So you should just get out now, Ashley, before this thing keeps train wrecking. To the guy who's now showing up here sending Jeremy an email that's like, yeah, I'm in, right? Like, so what changed between those two moments in time?
So there was kind of a lot that changed. When I first went to therapy and started listening to podcasts, yours was one of the first that I started listening to along with the Therapy Brothers.
Probably the best.
Yeah, definitely the best.
Shout out, the Therapy Brothers is awesome.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I just recorded an episode with them on there. They're coming on our show, so we're doing this swap thing.
But I kept telling myself I want to share with people, and I want to help them, but also help myself. And just a few months ago, I was in therapy, and my therapist, he's an awesome guy.
Oh, give us a name. We like to shout out the good ones.
Micah at Therapy Utah.
Micah, what up? Shout out.
Great. He kind of inadvertently got me to do it. We were talking about the harder things that I had been going through and the harder struggles that I had, and he said, oftentimes the cave that we fear entering holds the secrets and desires that we're looking for. And I was like, mind blown, holy cow. What better way for me to tackle my vulnerability than to go on a podcast? And so I sent the email to Jeremy and I said, I want to be on this podcast. And a little of it was probably a little selfish, Well,
tell us the selfish part.
Just that I want to do this and I want to, just share my story. That felt a little selfish to me.
I'm curious why it's selfish.
I don't know. I think
how's it benefiting you? What's the payoff?
Just that people will know my story, and at first I was like, oh, that's kind of selfish, and then I was like, people aren't gonna really like that, they might not like me after I share my story and after they know the terrible things that I have done.
But take me back to the selfish and how's that benefit you? Because I know if I take your water that you have sitting here right now, I would argue that is selfish because I have a water bottle already. But I get why that benefits me. I get more water. So what's selfish about it?
I think just the feeling of feeling known and seen and heard. Because that was always a big struggle for me growing up, was wanting to be connected to people and wanting to search out that connection, and obviously led me to bad places.
Sorry, I'm going to make sure we're clear on what you're saying out loud. Because I think what you're saying, Gavin's actually quite profound. Your definition of selfish is being seen and heard, and people really seeing your vulnerable heart. If someone had to sit with you and your vulnerable heart and all that you are, and actually know you and be with you, that's selfish, because who would want to do that with you?
Yeah, and I think that I felt that I was just going to gain so much from this, and I feel like I have, but it's not what I thought I was going to gain. I thought I was going to gain some attention, and people were going to say, oh, that's so cool, and this and that, and people have been a little skeptical about it. When I tell people, they say, oh, I don't, why would you want to do that? And
the shame is present. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And what is this all about? But I felt a little selfish for saying, I just want to be on a podcast and share my story so people can know me, and see me.
Because you being seen, you taking up space, you being witnessed, is selfish.
There was a part of me that thought so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pointing that out because I don't think you're unique in this, my brother.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think all of us struggling with addiction can hold space for, like, and you and I've talked about this, like, who would want me?
Oh yeah.
And so, like, clearly to claim that I'm wanted, right, or that someone would want to sit with me or know me, it's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So I'm curious the experience you're having right now, knowing we don't think you're selfish.
Yeah.
Are you experienced? Is this?
No.
Yeah, I think after talking to my therapist about it and kind of sitting with the thought, like, I'm going to be on a podcast.
Micah, don't.
Like,
He's not a random
Micah,
therapist.
sorry.
We know him
Micah.
now, right? He's been part of the episode.
He is. I think that I was...
Jason's first therapist as well.
Yeah,
When he
he's-
started.
he's
recovery.
awesome.
He loves Micah. Yeah.
I think, like I said before, I knew that I was going to gain something, but it wasn't what I thought I was going to gain. Now I feel like I'm going to gain an easier path to vulnerability, and a sense that if I can be vulnerable to everybody, I can be vulnerable to my parents, to my future spouse. I can be vulnerable to myself, because those are all things that I had a very hard time doing for a very long time.
Yeah. So since we have you here in, like, the raw of the real time, what's it like being vulnerable? Because the hypothesis of what this experience is different than actually experiencing. We do experiential work all the time as therapists and coaches, and so we know experiencing something is different than talking about it.
Yeah,
so what's it like experiencing, sharing your story?
To be completely honest, it's been a lot easier than I thought it would have been. You know, especially like over the last couple of weeks, talking to my parents about this episode, and my mom, you know, she didn't know what this was going to be like, and I talked to my family on Sunday, and I said, hey, I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to be on a podcast. Like, I don't know the reach this is going to have. And she's like, oh, well, I think it's just the people that listen. And I was like, well, like, they have my face and my name. And she's like, oh, geez, like, I didn't know that.
And let us know how dope we are that we're in different countries.
Yeah, and I was like, this is this is
Social
me.
security number, home address,
exactly,
yeah, cell
everything.
phone number, all your IP addresses,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but no,
Jeremy's got it all. It's a
He's
lot
been
more
tracking it the
happened
whole
when you
time.
sent us that email than you thought. No,
So that's interesting that you're letting them know. So does that, since you are the second oldest of six boys, right?
Yeah.
You've opened up about this. So what has that conversation been around with your brothers and being like, hey, I struggle with this. Now I'm getting it out there so you can even come to me. Like, have they reached out to you? Like, what has that been like?
Obviously, growing
Not
up
that you
with
want to
six,
throw anybody
yeah,
under the bus,
no, of
but-
course not. Obviously, growing up with six boys, there wasn't a lot of feeling sharing growing up, and there still really isn't. You know, it's.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that it's been easier for some of my brothers to come and say, hey, like, you know, I've been struggling with this, and we can just talk about it. It's not necessarily me giving advice, but it's just having conversations about it, which never happened before. You know, I remember the only conversation my older brother and I had when I was in the thick of it in high school is he kind of caught me looking at pictures of girls in bikinis, and he said, it's not worth it, Gav. It's not worth
So
it.
he already knew.
And that was kind of the only conversation we've had about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's opened up, and I hope it will open up more doors for just more conversation, more vulnerability as a family, instead of just kind of putting up our walls and thinking that everything's okay.
But sitting here right now in this moment, what's it like?
I mean, first of all, I'm having a lot of fun. Just sharing. I mean, it's more fun than I thought it would be. Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, but I think that it's very beneficial. I think that people can just learn and hopefully take away one thing that I say and change for the better. But
Well, and I think this is like, I think this is fascinating, the experience we're having right now together. Gav, as now I know your brothers call you, is because people are so afraid of the vulnerability. And in fact, this is one of the themes. This is where you and I are kindred spirits. I intentionally started Unashamed Unafraid when I was not sober. Because I'm like, well, shoot, there's the people who wait till they're 3 years sober, and then we'll only kind of talk about limited windows of the story, so they can talk about, right? That's real easy to talk about it when you've won the war, right? But like, who's talking from the trenches, right? Like in the thing. And so I can find people who are too ashamed to actually talk about it. You know, hey, this is an anonymous blog online, and none of us use our real names or say what we actually do. Whatever, and I get it, this guy's trying, but it is, right? Or you get some vomity stuff where people are just, you know, and you're like, oh, whoa, like, I didn't need you to, like, describe the porn scene, not helpful, right? And so, I think, I can name for me, it's a really different experience actually being vulnerable than what everyone thinks it is. And so I think it's interesting, like, dude, like, you got divorced 3 months ago. Like this isn't a story a decade ago where you're sitting here with your new wife and your 3 kids and you're like, oh yeah, that was a chapter in my life, but I've had all the learning and the love. Like, Gavin, we're in it right now. And you're sharing from that place, which I think, to your point, like, people are telling you, like, dude, what are you doing, or whatever. I mean, your own shame is telling you this is so selfish to be doing this. But yet, as we sit here, you were using words like easier than I thought, fun, like connective, are all words you have used since sitting here with me since I've asked that question. And I think that's really indicative of what vulnerability and recovery and brotherhood really does feel like.
And
because we're doing it right now, dude.
And that's what I have told myself is, like, I am in the thick of it. Like, I'm not sitting here 5 years sober saying, back in my day when I did this, you know.
Like James does when he's old.
But it's like I'm in the thick of it, and I'm still working through this every day, and it's still a process.
So all this is going on within the last 6 months. Before you talked about God is someone that you've got to earn his love. You got to do all those things to earn his love. Where are you at with God right now?
I don't think my recovery really started until I let him in. You know, for a long time, I was battling through this by myself. And
have you started to let him in?
Yeah.
And that looks like?
Just doing things that draw me closer to him. You know, reading my scriptures and praying and just being mindful of him. You know, I've tried to switch the music that I listen to, and I've come to love Christian music. And
let's go!
Who
you listen to? Just who's hot right now?
Oh, everybody. I mean, Mercy Me has always been a good one for me.
Yes, sir.
Colin Dixon is a good one.
Oh yeah, that's my boy. First concert I ever went to, he was the opener.
Really?
Yeah,
I've really liked his stuff. But listening to podcasts and just filling my time with. I've started to read a lot more. I've read a book a month so far this year.
Sweet.
It's been
favorite
great.
book you've read?
There are 2. There's a lot, but the first 2 that I read in January and February, it was Recovery by Russell Brand, which is a really good book, and then it was Wild at Heart. I read that for the first time this year.
Let's go! Wild at Heart fans up in here!
And that was such a good book. It was
WarriorHeart.com.
Yeah, it was such a good book. But like I said, for a long time I was doing this by myself, and it wasn't until I let God into my recovery and into my life and kind of let him have control that he made a really big impact in my life.
It's awesome. So, Gavin, we do this thing often with people on the show, because we'll get people on the show who are 2 years ahead of where you are right now, or 5 years ahead, or a decade ahead of where you are right now. And we'll always ask them, like, if we could go back to when you were in the thick of it, you know, what would you have needed or wanted, or what would you want to tell yourself? And so we have the mental exercise of bending time and space, because, bro, you in it.
Yeah.
And so, out of anything that we could give you, of anything that we could do for you right now, what would be the most generous? Like, what do you really need right now?
Probably one of those cool shirts. But
done.
I think I think it's the thing that I've been searching for my whole life, and that's just to be connected with people. You know, it's led me to some very dark places and very dark times, but it's also led me to some really good people. And I think that was kind of a little bit of the selfish part of it too, was I hope that I can just meet really cool people and that they'll accept me, you know? And I was like, but that's what I want. I want a group of people that I can go to, and, you know, I'm a part of some different groups that are kind of those things, and it's been really cool to be a part of those and go to activities and just meet new people that maybe not struggling with the things that I am, but are struggling in their own lives, and just holding place for them and being a part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, so what if we gave you the opportunity to be accepted by some people who now actually know and have your whole story?
I mean, I think it'd be really cool.
Well, great. We can do this right now. One of the reasons why you should be watching on our YouTube channel, but I'm going to start with my boy Jason right there. So I'm going to let him take off the headphones. And if you were to show our friend Gavin here what being accepted would look like.
And that's what a sound.
Put words to
a hug
that.
sounds like.
It's a podcast, Jason. Put words to that.
Just love your heart. Yeah. Just love you for showing up for the people in your life, for showing up for us. And for showing up for yourself. Thank you. Just love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come over here, Jeremy. You ain't got
No, I was just
stay
moving
right
that.
there. Jeremy just heard your whole story.
Yes, he did.
Come to my group, man.
I will.
Come be part of a community that accepts you for being Gavin.
I will. Thank you.
Do you accept him for being Gavin?
Yeah, 100% right here.
Thanks.
We had a good chat out there in the foyer.
Yeah, we
and
did.
Look forward to having him come and be part of my little community on Tuesday nights, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Guys will love you.
Thank you. I
Let 'em
appreciate
love
that. I will.
Let him be your friend.
I will.
I'll be your friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Dude, he's going to be your
Jane.
friend and he even knows your story.
Jane, yeah, you ain't got to sit
That's
down.
dope.
Okay, we're still going.
Take a big step back here, so make sure everyone here. Big step back, Gavin. Big step back. There we go.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
James? Give it words, James. It's a podcast.
It's not the way I do, but
You don't do a podcast?
Gavin, your worth is set. Everything else is just an experience. You don't have to do or be or say anything to be worthy of love and connection.
Thank you.
Now we're going to let it get real tender, because all these big old G's in recovery, we'll let Ella Wilhite come up here.
Thanks for sharing.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're great.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And that's a woman like in your age group. You know,
Yes.
like the last person you'd want to know. Lehigh, what you doing? Sitting down, bro.
He's like, oh man.
Oh boy.
Made me cry, man.
Thanks.
That's because you're not alone.
I appreciate that.
We're not alone. We got each other.
Yeah, we do. Thank you.
Love you, man.
Love you too.
Now,
Wait, you got one more.
yeah, get in here, Sway. Sway's
What's up?
behind the camera.
I'm short enough.
Jason will do the camera for you.
Do we need to lower it?
You matter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you get to take up all the space that you need to take up. It's not being selfish.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I'm curious what that's like for you.
I mean, that was really cool. I think to hear it is a lot different than thinking you'll hear it. And that's been the biggest part of, I think, my recovery is me feeling okay with myself and being okay with myself.
That's the journey, brother.
So just kind of hearing that from everybody else. I mean, complete strangers that I didn't know an hour ago was really cool.
I think this is a beautiful example of what being unashamed and unafraid is really all about, because it's like a ton of courage for you to come here and sit with us.
Yeah.
And the difference between where you were sitting and the man next to me, him and his wife got problems. They're human people and super love each other, and I witness it and I see them together. Who's 17 years sober now?
16.
16 years sober. Is just not that far, because he used to be sitting where you're sitting.
Oh.
And so that's it, man. Vulnerability. Thank you for being willing to come on the show and not talk about it, but literally be doing it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I am honored to be holding your story, and brother, love you deeply.
Thank you.
And completely accept you. And I'm grateful for what you think is a selfish connection. So I'd love to get that crap out of your body. But I really feel like I have been one to really receive. So I don't know what you think is selfish, but you have given.
Well, thank you.
And I'm not dumb. I know what I'm experiencing. And so, honored to have you here, man, and to be with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing your heart, man.
We always have people end the show with a song. So a song that you feel represents 6-month divorced, starting your recovery process, making it happen. The song that sticks out right now.
So it's Through All of It by Colton Dixon.
Oh, good one.
It's a banger, an oldie but a goodie. Hey, so we invite you to join us for the bonus content with Gavin, and you can do that by becoming an outsider. So we invite you to go to unashamedunafraid.com/donate and help us with the cause, so that more people like Gavin in work and recovery can find us, and they can find that connection that's happening here tonight and with you guys listening. And so we appreciate it. We want to hear from you. So reach out to us the way that Gavin did. We want to support you in your recovery, and come be an outsider. It's a beautiful community that makes this message happen. Give us 5 stars on iTunes. That's how the world rates us, so that more Gavins of the world can find us and have hope. And follow us on social media at Unashamed Unafraid. And until we're able to connect again, we will leave you with Colton Dixon, Through All of It, a banger. And until then, continue to be unashamed.